also tells stories.
Yes, I am going to tell you a story called The Mouse Princess.
So, is the mouse princess have lots of mice? Or is it her father is king of the mice? Or...
That's part of the story.
Oh.
You'll find out. Once upon a time, there was a farmer who had two sons. The elder son was called Topi, and the younger son was called Nico.
I thought you said this was about a mouse princess, not two brothers.
It is. We'll get there.
Oh, sorry.
You must be patient.
It's hard.
One day their father called them over and said to them, "The time has come for you to choose a bride. But our family has a different way of choosing a bride. You must each cut down a tree, and whatever direction the tree is pointing when it lands, you must go that way until you find a sweetheart. That's how we've always done it, and that's how we always will."
That seems a very silly way to find a bride.
It is indeed. Now, Topi already had a sweetheart, but he knew how to cut down a tree so that it would point whatever direction he wanted. But Nico didn't have a sweetheart, so he just cut the tree and let it fall wherever. And when it landed, it was pointing into the deep forest.
That's not a good sign.
Topi began to laugh at Nico. Who will you find to marry that way? Will you marry a fox or a wolf?
Topi sounds kind of mean.
He is kind of mean. But Nico didn't care. He just said, "I'll find who I find." And with that, he set off into the woods. He soon came to a little cottage in the woods. He went inside hoping to find a sweetheart. But once inside, there was nobody there. "All this way for nothing," he said. But then he heard a little voice.
Maybe not.
"What are you doing?"
I want to help tell the story. I can be the mouse. I have mouse ears.
"Very well, you can be the mouse." Nico looked down on the table and saw a little mouse. "Did you say something?" he said.
Yes. Now, tell me who you are and why you're here.
"I'm Nico. I'm looking for a sweetheart,"
I'll be your sweetheart.
the little mouse said.
Wait. Are we sure about this? Mice are very tiny and people are... How is this going to work?
Nico was wondering that as well. "How can you be my sweetheart?" he said. "You're only a mouse."
I may be a mouse, but I'll be the most loyal sweetheart you've ever had.
And with that, she began to sing him a little song.
Sweetheart I will be, he remorse and I love him and he loves me, we'll be happy together.
Nico was amazed. Still, he wasn't sure about having a mouse for a sweetheart. But then the little mouse said,
Come and feel my fur.
When he stroked the little mouse's fur, he noticed that it felt soft and smooth, like velvet, and he said so.
See, even a mouse can be special.
And then she began to sing again.
I do wear a velvet gown, he remorse and he remorse, Nico's love will be my crown, we'll be happy together.
Nico stroked the little mouse's fur, and eventually he went back home to find his brother Topi already there, telling about his sweetheart, a beautiful girl with long golden hair and rosy red cheeks.
And she's not a mouse.
Now Nico didn't want to admit that his sweetheart was a mouse, so he just said, my sweetheart wears a velvet gown just like a princess. Then their father said, I must test your sweetheart. Tomorrow you must have them weave me a cloth and bring it here for me to see. That's how we've always done it, and that's how we always will.
I'm very curious to see how mice are going to weave a cloth.
Nico was curious about that as well. The next day he went back to the cottage in the wood and he told his sweetheart that he needed her to weave him a cloth.
At once! Why don't you take a rest here while I get to work?
And then she began to sing him a lullaby.
I will weave him linen fine, he remorse and he remorse, I'm his and he is mine, we'll be happy together.
Nico soon fell fast asleep, entranced by the sweet sounds of the lullaby.
Dude, I literally felt like we were hamburgers. You know the clock that's in the alligator? That's what I felt like going on.
Sorry, I'm awake.
Where?
You were saying?
Nico took the cloth home to his family, and there was Toby already showing the cloth that his sweetheart had woven. A strong and sturdy but very plain-looking cloth. Good enough for simple folk like us, their father said. But then, when Nico showed them his sweetheart's linen, they were amazed. Surely there can be no finer weaver than Nico's sweetheart. And then he said, tomorrow you must bring your sweethearts here for the wedding. That's how we've always done it, and that's how we always will. The next day, Nico went back to the cottage in the forest, and he told his little mouse sweetheart that it was time for the wedding. But then he began to cry. How can I bring a mouse home to marry? He said.
And what will the neighbors think?
But then the little mouse put her paw on Nico's hand, and she said,
Ah, but Nico, what do you think?
Nico looked into her big, bright eyes and said, I think you're as sweet as any sweetheart can be. Let them think what they will. Today you'll be my bride. And then she rang a tiny bell, and out of the wall came a turnip carved into a carriage. It was pulled by 4 black rats, and it had a tiny mouse coachman and a mouse footman.
Wow, those are some amazing mice.
You have no idea. The little mouse went over and got into the carriage and began to sing once more.
In a carriage I will ride, he remorse and he remorse, I am going to be his bride, we'll be happy together.
The carriage shot out of the door so quickly that Nico had to run to keep up. When he got back to his house, he saw that Toby was already there with his sweetheart, a beautiful woman with long golden hair and rosy red cheeks. But then, when Toby saw the little mouse in the carriage, he began to laugh at his brother. You're marrying a mouse, he said. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And with that, he kicked the turnip carriage, which landed in the river nearby and was quickly swept away.
Oh no!
What have you done? Cried Nico. You've killed my sweetheart. Don't be a fool, Toby said. She was only a mouse. She may have been a mouse, but she was my sweetheart. I loved her and I was going to marry her. Just then, out of the river came a real carriage pulled by 4 black horses. It pulled up, and out stepped a beautiful woman in a lovely velvet gown.
Is it the princess?
It is!
Hooray!
Are you my mouse sweetheart? Nico said.
Yes, I am. I was under a spell which could only be broken when one brother wanted to kill me and the other brother wanted to marry me.
Where did you get...
The crown?
Yes.
I borrowed it from Princess Isabella. She said I have to bring it back when we're done.
Yes. Please do not forget to give that back. I do not want to lose my head over this. And then the princess began to sing once more.
Now our wedding day is here. Be remorse and be remorse. I will be happy together.
The four of them were married, and then Nico and his sweetheart went back to the cottage in the forest, only to find that it wasn't there anymore.
What happened to it?
It had turned back into a castle with lots of servants and attendants.
Huzzah!
They made their home very happily there.
And you know, if they had any sons, how they had to find their brides. That's how we've always done it, and that's how we always will.
The end.